Today on Q&A Mondays, we're going to talk about how to get commercial work as a residential contractor. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Metal Roofing Channel. Welcome to Q&A Mondays. I'm in Denver, Colorado at the Sheffield Metals branch here. We're talking about commercial metal roofing and how to move up to that commercial work as a residential contractor and kind of what that looks like. All the questions we're going to be talking about today are in the description in the video below. And I've got Joe LaCrue from Sheffield Metals, and we have a special guest here today. Can you talk to us a little bit about who you are and what you do in this area?
Yeah, my name is Joe Gurule. I own Guardian Metal Systems. We install metal roofing and metal wall systems, and we custom fabricate architectural installations as well.
Awesome. Well, I'm really happy to have you on the channel today. We're going to be talking a little bit about residential and commercial roofing. So talk to me about how you started doing, both residential and commercial work. What was that process like for you? What was that journey like?
Well, the process wasn't too difficult because I was an installer, so I've installed commercial projects. Bidding the projects was more of the process I had to learn. You had to be invited or ask if you can build a project. So where I started was just contacting local builders, local contractors, asking if they had contracts that I would be able to provide a qualified bid for.
Sure.
And they're more than happy to take those qualified bids if you talk to them.
So you're reaching out to GCs and trying to establish that relationship there, is that right?
I find it works better than just buying into a service and just throwing a number out and not talking to people.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about maybe some other requirements that commercial work has that residential might not, as far as equipment, insurance, and things like that. Talk to me a little bit about that.
So you do have to carry liability insurance and workman's comp. Some contractors require that you carry more to do commercial work than you do for residential, so you do have to take that into account, and your insurance provider will work with you.
Okay.
What I found also is you have to carry more insurance on your vehicles to do commercial projects as well. Workman's comp, that's just an employee thing, so it really doesn't affect that part of the insurances you need.
Sure.
What about the, I guess one would be quantity of employees, and then two, is it a different skill set from a guy that does residential to a guy that's going into commercial? Or, are the guys that you feel that do residential have more skills than the guys that do commercial work?
No, I don't believe it's a different skill set. I think you have an overlap of the same guys installing residential and commercial. The applications are the same. I think it's more of commercial is you have to be ready when they're ready. You have to plan better. You have to schedule better. When you're in the residential side, the customers tend to work on your schedule. You can say, hey, this is when I'm going to be here. And if you have issues, you can work it out. On the construction side, they tell you, this is when I need you here. So that's what you need to plan for as well.
So the residential is just a lot more flexible then?
Correct.
Gotcha.
Sure. So Joe, let me ask you about this. When somebody might be interested in getting into metal roofing and they want to maybe purchase a machine, is it important for them not to be, tied down to only those residential profiles, depending on what machine they choose, if they want to branch out into commercial work later on?
Absolutely. I think one of the first things that I personally ask, or we ask, is do you have a current manufacturer that makes metal roofing panels? More than likely, they do have somebody that does their sheet metal already, and they usually have panel machines. Two, that's definitely one of the choices if they're ready to get into that panel machine. Here are the most popular commercial panels, and here's the most popular residential panels. And at the end of the day, if they're getting a new machine, they're usually going to get two, so we recommend one of each, so they can cover both sides of their business and help them grow within that business.
Sure. So what type of advice would you have for someone who is interested in getting into the commercial world? What type of advice would you give them?
Is to learn the product. You have to learn the product. In the residential world, the customer wants to rely on the contractor's knowledge. They know they want a metal roof, they just don't know what's going to work for them. In the commercial, they know what they have.
Yeah.
They know the product from a different viewpoint. They know the specs. They want to meet different criteria, design criteria, and also ASTMs. They're still relying on the subcontractor to tell them, this meets your criteria, but that's where it's different, I think.
Yeah.
And that's where I find, Joe's support here very helpful. because if I have any questions, to the spec, can we meet the spec with the Sheffield product? He's going to tell me yes, and we're going to make it happen.
Yeah, talk to me about how important finding someone to partner with in that process is to
If you're just starting out, I think it's very important. Joe talks to contractors. I'm sure he talks to architects, and he's been very helpful for me when I've had questions on different ASTMs or different specs or different testing that they're asking for. And that's where I find Sheffield invaluable. I just pick up the phone and they say, yes, this panel meets the specs, so I'm good to go.
Awesome.
And I think something that we all take for granted is that just because the specification is there and it needs to be met doesn't mean it's the right product or the right specification. And that's where I think an experience of somebody like Joe comes into place, says, hey, they specified this, but we don't need a 2-inch mechanical with sealing in the seams. It's over a certain roof pitch. We can use a snap lock. It'll look a lot better. It'll save money for the project because there's less labor of seaming. And I think that's where the expertise or the partnership comes into play, where we're both looking at the spec saying, they specified this, but they're wrong, or let's give them a better option that'll help their budget and help their time frame and really give them a solution at the end of the day.
And a lot of times it's helped on the budgetary part of the options as well. But there's times when Sheffield's not in the spec, but I know they can meet the spec that the architect's asking for. So with Joe's help, and in the past, I've been able to use Sheffield on projects where they weren't spec.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, it's that's
you get established,
right?
And you talk to people, and you know that I can give you this product, and you can give them this product that meets the spec, and you're going to save them.
Okay, sure.
And it's local, and their time frames and everything else. There's a benefit all the way across the board because it's easier for Joe to get the materials. If there's a problem, there's the material here locally. We don't have to wait for trucks. It costs less, and it's better for the environment.
Not only, it is a cost savings, but that is the biggest selling point to architects and builders is the local availability and the local support. That's what I sell big time when I want to change something to Sheffield Metals.
Is there something that maybe looking back you would have done differently or something that you would have improved throughout your process that could help someone else?
Scheduling is learn how to schedule things and be honest with scheduling. You're going to have situations where a job becomes more complicated, it takes more time, and you're delaying another project. You just have to be honest with people. Let them know that, hey, I'm delayed on this other project, and most of the time they're willing to work with you. But you got to be upfront with your scheduling, and you got to really do a good job on scheduling. I think things are going to run smoothly when you make a transition from residential to commercial.
So that communication is key in that process.
Very
though.
key.
Just letting them know.
Like I said, residential, it's your schedule. Commercial, it's their schedule.
Yep.
You're going to have to learn different processes of getting paid. There's different documents to fill out. It's just not sending out an invoice anymore. There's AIA documents. Different progress payments. Sometimes you have to get into certified payroll. That's a whole different thing. And be aware on the payment schedules. You're going to wait a little bit longer to get paid, and they're going to keep retention at the end. That was kind of a big thing into the jump in the commercial world, is they're going to keep some of that profit. And sometimes they keep it for a long time.
Yeah.
So define what that means. What is retention?
Retention is they keep a percentage. Usually it's 10% of the contract or your contract. And what they do is they make sure when all the work is complete and inspected, everything passes, they do their checks and queues, and once everything's signed off on, then they release retention to the contractors. And sometimes they release it to you when your stuff's done. Sometimes they have to wait till the whole project's done.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a security deposit for basically, in layman's terms, for the general contractor.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I think we covered a lot of great stuff here, and I really thank you for sharing your expertise. If you have any questions, comment down below. Make sure you subscribe here to the Metal Roofing channel. Hope you answered some questions about how to get commercial work as a residential contractor. We'll catch you next time.